In lecture 7, we talked about managing team and groups. A first approach that was very important is to give an account about how groups are formed. And there was a developmental stage approach that says, well, there are different phases, and it's important to know where we are if we want to manage group properly. These phases are forming, the group comes together. Storming, that's where the deep issues of the group surface. There could be difference in identity, difference in what we think the objective is. And then that leads to a coalescing of the group that creates norms, common norms. And that helps the group to go beyond the issues and start performing. And then once the job has been done, the group will adjourn. So it's a very mechanic way, but it's quite useful to see the progress of a group and how they come together.
This model applies across different time spans. So whether it's a group that's brought together just for a couple of hours in a meeting, or whether it's a project that lasts over a few weeks or months or a year, you can analyze the performance or the development of this group according to this very helpful model. Of course, it has its limitations, and that is that groups don't necessarily follow those exact stages of development.
They can look back, they can progress and regress, they can have several phases of storming in relation to different issues.
You might have someone new come in to the group once they're already at the norming stage, and they might have to reform and restorm. Or you might have someone leave earlier as well. So it's helpful. It's another heuristic device, but we use it reflexively.
Right. Another useful aspect is group roles, and we approach the idea through Belbin, which is one of the classic typology and a very prominent researcher in the field. And he helps us understand the different roles that are needed in a group. Some people bringing expertise, some bringing the plans will bring ideas, some other making sure that we go through with the work. And so by using this typology, we can see, and the associated questionnaire, we can see whether all the roles that are necessary for the group to perform are there. And maybe we need to bring in somebody to actually summarize, bring everything together, make sure we do all the steps that we said we'll go through, or somebody with new ideas. So that's very helpful again in order to create the right dynamics for the group, which is what we're trying to achieve.
Group work is particularly important in post-bureaucratic organizations. There's a great reliance on teams and groups, project teams and so on. And so what is it about groups that is so important to the post-bureaucratic organization? Well, there's an idea that people actually perform at a much higher level when they act in a team. So this is called social facilitation. That is, the presence of others actually enables us to reach down and perform at our best level. There are some contingencies though. So one is that the task that has been assigned us needs to be something that actually challenges our skill set. And the other being that we actually need to have the experience in performing that kind of challenge. So when those two components are there, that it's challenging and it actually drills or draws upon our experience and our knowledge, then the presence of others will enable us to perform at a much higher level than if we're just working on our own.
And one of the key ideas underlying that is the fact that there is a social impact of being together. The group by itself has an impact on participants, and this impact will be depending on the size of the group. Where in small group there's a very, very strong connection that can happen. The nature of the relationship and the depth of the relationship, and the closeness, where being together in the same room immediately creates some proximity. And as soon as you start to pull people together in closely together, they start to identify with the group. And so that's the social impact on the group that's important for its dynamics.
That aspect of socio-temporality doesn't mean to say that teams can only operate in the same room. Some groups, they operate across the organization, so they will be brought in from different divisions to address different issues and concerns. Some teams are formed from even different states or even internationally, but there will be an issue. So the more dispersed we are in terms of closeness and time zones, the more likely we'll be able to operate as a team. The more dispersed we are, then that strength will be undermined or weakened.
Another element that can weaken the group is social loafing. Is when when somebody's taking advantage, is slacking off, is taking advantage of the group. So these dynamics of the group that will bring people together can be jeopardized by some people just not doing their part, and that will lead to, probably, if we look at the first approach, to some storming stage. Hopefully that can solve it, or it can be an ongoing problem that will undermine the dynamics of the group throughout its existence.
So at issue here is the diffusion of responsibility. If the team is quite large and I'm anonymous and not really noticed or counted, then I just might slack off in my efforts because I think no one else will notice and it won't make much of a difference anyway.
Now, even if the dynamics of the group is working well, there's a strong cohesion, the group really has used this social impact effect well, and we have a united team that's ready to go and take on this challenge, there will be some concerns with this group dynamics. And we went through some experiments and some research that shows that, well, there is a risk of conformity and obedience to the group, and that could lead to groupthink, meaning because people are together, they feel that sense of solidarity, togetherness, they tend to focus on themselves, what's called the in-group, differentiate from outsiders, and progress with only a set of ideas. What we've discussed in terms of knowledge, it means new knowledge is not brought to the group, new ideas don't come into the group, and that leads to groupthink. So it's a paralysis of the learning process, and it's all about doing the same thing the same way according to the principles of the group. Anybody who questions that is at risk of being excluded, and that's a very risky situation in an organization.
It really undermines the whole group dynamic process that post-bureaucratic organizations try to benefit from. So you incorporate groups in order to bring in new ideas, fresh knowledge, experience to address the dynamic environment and all the contingencies that arise. But then if you undermine that with allowing groupthink to set in, the whole process is undermined. One thing that invariably will come up in any group process is conflict. And we can relate to conflict in different ways. We can see it as something unacceptable and something that we just will not tolerate or we do not want to see in the group. Or we can see it actually as an opportunity for
debate and integrating new ideas.
That's right. And so if the conflict is around issues rather than personalities, that could be a really healthy thing. If it's around personalities, on the other hand, then the whole group process becomes very toxic.
And so one key role for a leader is to bring the conflict from a person-to-person confrontation to an idea and try to ponder which idea is the best. And actually the group should go for the best idea independently of who brought it and the internal politics of that group.
Resolving conflict, there are different attitudes around this. There's some that try to achieve this a win-win situation. So that's optimum. That is where rather than one winning over the other, so a win-lose or a lose-lose, that nobody wins if it can't be my idea and it won't be your idea, then we become stagnated. A win-win solution is where we try to understand what are these ideas that you have and what are the issues, how does it conflict with my idea, but then find a way to optimize or address the concerns of each, that we can actually get a solution that works for both.
See what's interesting in both perspectives and why we have these two perspectives and bring them together.
That's right.
Altogether, the group dynamics will be a tension between the importance of group identification and the fact that the social impact is important because we want people to be brought together, but the risk of it, because the group pressure, the group thing that could happen there is a risky situation. So you want to create this balance where people are united, they're identified to the group, they're up for the challenge, but by the same token, they don't forget to question their assumptions and bring new ideas. Thank you all.